In the heart of the Middle East, a region long marked by hidden conflicts, gray zone operations, and deep mistrust between states, a single report can send shockwaves across the world. Such was the case when accounts emerged of an explosion near one of Iran's most secretive and heavily guarded military complexes, a location that, by design and practice, remains shrouded in mystery, hidden from independent inspection, and opaque even to seasoned analysts. The implications were immediate. If true, it would mean that something significant had occurred at a site no one outside Tehran should ordinarily see, let alone comment on. Yet, as the initial reports spread, they were met not with confirmation, but with silence, confusion, and conflicting narratives. The facility in question is not just another base on a map. It is a locus of Iran's defense establishment, tied historically to both conventional weapons development and projects that Western governments suspect may be linked to nuclear weapons research. Sites like Parchin, southeast of Tehran, have frequently drawn scrutiny because commercial satellite imagery, expert analysis, and leaked documents over the years suggested that specialized explosive testing had once been conducted there. These tests, while explained by Iranian authorities as part of conventional weapons development, have nonetheless been interpreted by outside observers as potentially relevant to nuclear weapon design due to their association with high explosive chambers and sophisticated detonation research. Turn Zero Search 18 J feed in late January 2026. Social media platforms and opposition-linked sites began circulating claims that a powerful blast had occurred near this region. Some accounts were specific, noting the time and describing a bright flash followed by loud booms that reverberated miles around the area. Online threads described smoke columns, while others speculated that the explosion was so powerful it must have been the result of an accident at a provocative facility, or, as some asserted, a covert strike by a foreign intelligence service. However, these initial reports had a crucial limitation. There was no independent verification. No satellite footage publicly confirmed structural damage at the facility in real time. No global news crews were on the ground, and no government outside Iran issued a verified statement confirming the blast. In the absence of such confirmation, international news agencies cautioned against drawing firm conclusions based on scattered social posts that could not be authenticated. Anecdote spread faster than verified fact, as it so often does in moments of uncertainty. Turn Zero Reddit 48 hours and days passed, and what should have been footage of a major incident remained absent. Instead, officials in Tehran responded with routine denial. Iranian state media and government representatives insisted that no explosion occurred at any nuclear or sensitive military site. They characterized the sounds described by residents as nothing more than routine maintenance activities or scheduled testing within the base. Such responses are not new. In past incidents involving unexplained blasts, Iranian authorities have often worked quickly to dismiss or reinterpret reports to avoid public alarm or international scrutiny. This approach, though serving internal political goals, tends to fuel speculation abroad precisely because it reduces the amount of trustworthy information available. Turn Zero News 30, this dynamic, where rumors spread faster than official confirmation, reflects a broader reality of contemporary information wars. In contested environments like Iran, narratives become strategic tools. A denial or silence from one side can be interpreted as a cover-up, while unverified reports from opposition groups or exiled communities can be framed as propaganda or misinformation. The absence of clarity invites every interpretation imaginable, from the plausible to the paranoid. To understand why a reported explosion at a hidden base would capture global attention, one must consider several interconnected factors shaping the region today. First, Iran's nuclear and military programs have been at the center of international concern for decades. While Tehran insists its nuclear activities are peaceful, focused on energy and civilian research, Western governments have repeatedly expressed suspicion. Iran's history of secretive construction at sites like Natanz and Parchin, along with past attempts to limit access to international inspectors, has made transparency a persistent issue. In 2002, the existence of covert nuclear facilities was first revealed, underscoring a long equation of mistrust between Tehran and the U.S., Europe, and Israel. Turn 0 News 7. Another layer in this story involves events that occurred before the alleged explosion. Throughout 2025, satellite imagery captured by commercial firms showed reconstruction and concealment efforts at previously damaged nuclear sites like Natanz and Isfahan. Iran installed large roofs over damaged buildings at these facilities, a move analysts interpreted as a deliberate effort to shield the extent of the destruction from aerial surveillance. Experts suggest these coverings could be designed not to restore immediate operations, but rather to obscure what survived prior strikes and ongoing recovery work from international inspection. At the same time, expansion of underground facilities and reinforcing tunnel walls indicate a shift toward hardened, deeply buried infrastructure, essentially making parts of these sites impervious to traditional airstrikes and outside observation. Turn 0 Search 10 critically. Those images also showed reconstruction at the so-called Tailgan 2 facility within the Parchin complex, the very area most frequently linked to nuclear explosive testing in historical analysis. According to experts, the building destroyed by an Israeli strike in October 2024 was being rapidly rebuilt by mid-2025, suggesting an intent to restore or expand capabilities once thought dormant. This raised eyebrows among foreign analysts, who saw it as possible evidence of Tehran's desire to maintain or revive parts of nuclear relevant research despite international pressure. Turn 0 Search 19. These developments unfolded against the backdrop of heightened regional tensions. In mid-2025, a series of coordinated strikes by Israeli forces targeted Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure, including attacks near Tehran and at strategic facilities. Reports from that period described multiple explosions and damage to key installations as part of a broader campaign aimed at countering what Israel perceives as threats from Iran's advancing program. The United States supported such operations diplomatically, though the extent of direct involvement and tactical coordination remains sensitive to classified assessments. Turn 0 News 5. Whether or not the late January alleged explosion is directly tied to these strategic dynamics, it fits a pattern in which incidents, accidental, intended, or mischaracterized, become magnified through a web of geopolitical anxiety. This pattern is not unique to Iran. Nations with highly sensitive military programs often engage in denial or information containment following events that could be misinterpreted as vulnerability or compromise. One of the unmistakable truths about this incident is the silence that followed the initial reports. In most cases of verified explosions at strategic sites, whether at missile facilities or ports, satellite imagery, government statements, and independent journalism fill in the picture within days, but in this case, weeks after the rumors emerged, no such confirmation has materialized. There are corroborations of other explosions in Iran. For example, separate blasts at the southern port city of Bandar Abbas in late January 2026 were officially linked to gas leaks and industrial causes, resulting in several deaths and injuries, but these were clearly identified as civilian infrastructure incidents unrelated to military or nuclear bases. Turn 0, News 29. In the absence of verified proof, analysts have considered several possibilities. One is that the explosion, if real, could have been at a conventional part of the military complex, perhaps within a munitions storage or testing area, and misinterpreted as something more significant due to its proximity to sensitive zones. Another possibility is misattribution, where unrelated events in nearby regions like gas explosions or construction detonations are incorrectly linked to the secretive base by observers lacking precise locational data. A third scenario is that if the blast did occur at the facility, Iran's official denial and lack of acknowledgement might stem from a desire to avoid projecting vulnerability or domestic panic in a period of political friction and protest movements within the country. Iran's internal political landscape during this period was far from stable. Domestic protests erupted over economic woes, political disenfranchisement, and broader social grievances, leading to a severe government crackdown. These protests have been widely documented, and the state's response has included aggressive suppression measures, resulting in thousands of casualties and tens of thousands of arrests. The environment of heightened internal instability may have incentivized Iranian authorities to avoid public discussion of any incident near a military site, lest it fuel further unrest or perception of weakness. Turn 0 News 29. Another important dimension to consider is the broader pattern of explosions inside Iran's borders in recent years. Major incidents like the deadly blast at the port of Shahid Raji in 2025, which killed dozens and injured hundreds in one of the country's busiest commercial hubs, demonstrate that large explosions can and do happen there, sometimes due to industrial mishaps, poor storage of hazardous materials, or systemic safety failures. In that case, authorities were quick to acknowledge the event and eventually provide explanations linked to chemical storage and port infrastructure, rather than hidden military causes. Turn 0 Search 32, but strategic military sites are another matter entirely. The opacity surrounding them is by design. Iran has consistently limited access to its most sensitive facilities, including those historically linked to nuclear research, and the IAEA has faced ongoing challenges in negotiating access, verifying activities there. This lack of transparency contributes to global distrust and opens the door to speculation whenever an unusual event is reported near these locations. In the geopolitical arena, silence can communicate as much as an admission. Iran's refusal to acknowledge the alleged blast at a secretive complex may be intended to avoid international escalation. In a region where proxy fights, covert operations, and intelligence rivalries are already intense, including armed conflict involving Iranian proxies in countries like Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen, Tehran may calculate that denying the incident is preferable to stoking accusations of vulnerability or covert attack. On the other side of the equation, Western and Israeli officials have historically been cautious about publicly confirming or denying actions targeting Iranian bases. In past operations, such as the strikes on nuclear sites in June 2025 by U.S. and Israeli forces, which reportedly damaged facilities at Natanz and Fordo, officials communicated strategic objectives but refrained from detailed public admission of covert actions. That attack was described by some experts as an attempt to slow Iran's nuclear program, though neither government fully released operational details. Turn 0 News 3. It is this interplay of secrecy, strategic denial, asymmetrical messaging, and fragmented information that turns an unconfirmed report of an explosion into a global puzzle. Some analysts will argue that the lack of independent evidence suggests the entire episode may have been a false alarm or a misattributed event. Others will maintain that the silence and denial are themselves evidence of something significant that Tehran does not wish to disclose. Still, others will observe that, regardless of what actually occurred, the very existence of such reports and the way they spread reflects a deeper mistrust of information from within Iran's borders and from global intelligence communities alike. This mistrust is not unfounded. The historical record shows that Iran has at times concealed parts of its nuclear program from international inspection, and that it has been slow or reluctant to provide transparent access to sites suspected of weaponization activities. Coupled with the geopolitically charged atmosphere, where rival states and proxy actors actively monitor, interfere, or challenge Iran's strategic ambitions, any event, large or small, can quickly become a flashpoint for international debate. Finally, if the goal of the initial unverified reports was to draw attention, frustration, or criticism to Iran's defense posture, it may have succeeded precisely because the resulting ambiguity captures the imagination of analysts, policymakers, and the public alike. The very question at the heart of this episode, was it an accident, an attack, or a cover-up, or remains unanswered and indeed may never be answered with full clarity. In a region where truth is often obscured by strategy, uncertainty becomes a weapon in its own right. The silence that followed the reported blast at Iran's most secret base is not just a lack of information. It is a statement in itself, one that reflects the opaque nature of modern conflict, enduring mistrust between nations, and the world's persistent struggle to discern reality amidst a fog of competing narratives.